Beneath the ground in Geneva, a ring of cold metal stretches for kilometers. Inside it, particles collide at energies meant to imitate the earliest moments of the universe. Now cut to the other side of history, a bamboo slip, a brush, a sentence written 25 centuries ago. The Tao that can be spoken is not the constant Tao. These two images should have nothing to do with each other. One belongs to modern physics, the other belongs to ancient philosophy, and yet both are circling the same impossible question. What existed before the universe broke into differences? This film does not claim that physics proves the Tao. It asks something more careful. Why do the deepest equations and the oldest language both become quiet at the same boundary? Before the world had stars, atoms, fields, observers, or names, it may not have been simply empty. It may have been undivided. Not a place, not a substance, not a hidden object waiting somewhere behind the universe, but a state before separation became possible, a silence before the first boundary, a depth before form. The Tao Te Ching begins by warning us about language. The Tao that can be spoken is not the constant Tao. The name that can be named is not the constant name. At first, this sounds mystical, but there is a precise cognitive insight hidden inside it. A name does not merely describe, a name reduces. Imagine a sculpture in 3 dimensions. The moment you photograph it, you preserve one angle, one outline, one projection. But every other possible view disappears from that image. That is what naming does to reality. It captures a slice. It stabilizes a perspective. It lets us point, measure, remember, and communicate. But it also hides the depth from which that slice was taken. Mountain becomes mountain. River becomes river. Light becomes light. Matter becomes matter. Knowledge begins. But so does separation. And here, even the sculpture metaphor begins to fail, because the source Laozi points toward is not a sculpture waiting to be photographed. It has no fixed outside, no inside, no angle, no edge. It is not an object in front of the camera. It is the condition before cameras, objects, and angles can exist. So in this episode, we will treat the Tao with care, not as a scientific variable, not as a physical field, not as a secret equation hidden in ancient text, but as a philosophical image of the undivided source, a way of speaking about what comes before the world becomes nameable. Now shift the camera, from bamboo slips to particle accelerators, from ancient language to modern field theory. Physics asks the same boundary question with different tools. Why does the universe contain so many kinds of things? There is gravity, there is electromagnetism, there are strong and weak nuclear interactions, there are particles, fields, charges, masses, and space-time itself. But again and again, physics has found that what appears separate at low energy may be more unified at a deeper level. This is where symmetry enters. In everyday language, symmetry can mean beauty, but in physics, symmetry means something stricter. A system has symmetry when it remains unchanged under a transformation. Rotate a perfect sphere and it still looks the same. You cannot tell which side was the original side. High symmetry means fewer distinctions, fewer labels, fewer ways for the universe to say, this is different from that. A perfectly symmetric universe sounds beautiful, but it would also be sterile. If nothing can be distinguished from anything else, then nothing can form a structure. No atoms, no stars, no chemistry, no memory, no observers. A universe that never breaks symmetry may remain complete, but it would not become a world. So the first crack in perfection is not merely a failure, it is the beginning of form. Physics calls one version of this process symmetry breaking. A more symmetric state becomes less symmetric. Fields take values, forces separate, structures become possible. The perfect surface develops a first line of light. The white beam enters a prism. Colors appear. The colors are not illusions. Inside the world after the prism, the colors are real. But the colors are not the whole light. This is the first major turn. Difference can be real without being final. Here, the resonance between Laozi and physics becomes visible. Laozi speaks of the nameless source before named things. Physics speaks of deeper symmetry before the differentiated world. One language is poetic and existential. The other is mathematical and experimental. They are not interchangeable. They do not prove each other, but they share a structure. Both suggest that the world of distinguishable things may not be the deepest layer. Both suggest that multiplicity may emerge from something less divided. This is not a bridge of proof. It is a bridge of disciplined comparison. And every bridge needs guardrails. Now, in the PTQ framework, this bridge becomes more specific. PTQ does not begin by assuming that the world we observe is the whole of reality. It asks whether the physical world we measure could be a stable projection from a deeper geometric structure. On this view, physicality is not simply whatever exists. Physicality is what survives projection into an observable sector. Imagine a complex object casting a shadow onto a flat surface. The shadow is real. It has shape. It can be measured. It can obey stable rules on the surface. But the shadow is not the entire object. In PTQ language, the observable universe is like that stable shadow. Not fake, not imaginary, but incomplete. A physical slice of a deeper structure. This is where epsilon enters. Epsilon should not be treated as a mystical number. It is a conceptual marker inside the PTQ framing. It represents projection residual, the tiny difference left behind when deeper geometry is projected into the observable world. At first, residual sounds like an error, a leftover, a mismatch, a small number that should have disappeared. But in this framing, epsilon is not waste. It is the price of form. To see why, imagine water becoming ice. Liquid water has no fixed shape. Its molecules move, flow, and rearrange. But when it freezes, the molecules choose a structure. A crystal lattice appears. Symmetry is reduced. And in that transition, energy is released. The broken symmetry is not merely a defect. It is how a new phase becomes real. In the PTQ picture, epsilon plays a similar conceptual role. It marks the cost of projection. The residue left when deeper symmetry becomes observable structure. Not a mistake, a trace. Not garbage, a seed. Now imagine a limit. This is not a claim about a measured universe. It is a thought experiment. What happens as epsilon approaches zero? The residual fades. The mismatch disappears. Observable distinction becomes harder and harder to sustain. The projected world approaches a state where difference has not yet been carved out. We should not say, "This is the Tao." That would be too strong. But we can say this. As a philosophical limit, epsilon approaching zero resembles a return to undifferentiated depth. No name, no boundary, no separated form. Only symmetry before the first projection leaves a trace. But we do not live in epsilon equals zero. We live in a world where a residual has appeared. A projection leaves a mark. A difference becomes stable enough to be observed. Laozi compresses this movement into one of the most famous sequences in Chinese thought. The Tao gives birth to one. One gives birth to two. 2 gives birth to 3. 3 gives birth to the 10,000 things. In this film, we translate that only as metaphor. The undivided whole becomes a projected relation. The relation separates visible from hidden degrees of freedom. Those sectors interact through stable constraints, and from those constraints, the observable world unfolds. A hidden degree of freedom can sound abstract, so imagine a train. A train on a track can move forward or backward. Its path is constrained. Most possible directions are unavailable. Now imagine a drone. It can move forward, backward, left, right, up, down. It can rotate. It has many more ways to change. A degree of freedom is one independent way a system can vary. Projection does not merely reveal a world. It also locks away possibilities. Some directions become observable. Others remain hidden in the deeper structure. This is the beginning of 2, visible and hidden, observable and unobservable, the surface and the depth. Then relation appears. Space, time, energy and constraint begin to weave together into a world that can evolve. And from that evolving world come atoms, stars, galaxies, cells, nervous systems, memories, and the strange fact that something inside the universe can ask where the universe came from. Again, this is not proof. It is a way to visualize emergence. The many are not created from nothing. They unfold from a deeper whole through projection, limitation, and stabilization. Like white light passing through a prism, the colors are real, but the colors are not the whole light. Modern science is astonishingly good at studying the colors. It can isolate the red, measure the blue, predict how each wavelength bends, scatters, and interacts. That is its power, precision. But ancient philosophy performs a different function. It asks us not to forget the white light. Not because the colors are false, they are not. The colors are real, but they may not be the whole. Science studies the broken symmetry with extraordinary precision. Philosophy reminds us that every fragment still came from a deeper whole. One measures the trace after the prism. The other asks what the light was before it split. For a long time, we have imagined these paths as separate. One path leads to the laboratory, the other leads inward towards silence. But perhaps the deeper question does not belong to either path alone. What exists before difference? What appears when a boundary is drawn? What is lost when reality becomes nameable? This is the purpose of the bridge. Not to turn physics into mysticism, not to turn Laozi into an equation, but to walk carefully between them and let each side sharpen the other. Because beneath the world of names, particles, forces, and forms, there may still be a deeper silence waiting for a better question. But one question remains. If projection turns a deeper structure into an observable world, what defines the surface of projection? What decides which directions become visible and which remain hidden? In the next episode, we will not claim that consciousness creates the universe. We will ask a more precise question. Could observation be part of the boundary between the visible and the hidden? Could the ancient image of yin and yang help us think about observable sectors and deeper degrees of freedom? Next, the two faces of reality.